Back. It's been another week, unfortunately, in which racial polarisation really has stolen the headlines here in our country.
Indeed, while the arguments and name-calling continues, especially on social media, around the developments in places like Senegal, for instance, other quarters are calling for calm and mutual understanding.
It's the old mantra, isn't it? We are more alike than we are different. It is at the core of a new documentary that's been released by well-known actor and musician Bouwer Bosch.
First, with a catchy single, Liefde, Uthando, and now with a visual think piece by that same name. Bosch delves into the importance of music and dance to South Africans from different cultural backgrounds. Before we speak to him, let's take a snippet from that documentary.
Ek glo musiek speel 'n baie belangrike rol in kultuur. Dis hoe jy stories vertel, dis hoe jy stories van vorige generasies vertel. Dis hoe jy vertel wat binne jou aangaan. Dis hoe jy woorde gee aan mense wat nie woorde het vir hoe hulle voel nie, en musiek is vir my medisyne.
I feel joy when I dance ispanzula. I tell my story when I dance ispanzula. I express my thoughts and I express my ambitions when I dance ispanzula. So ispanzula is actually me saying to the world how I feel.
When I dance in Xhosa, firstly, we connect to our ancestors. Xhosa are very spiritual people that connect with their spirits, with the spirits of their ancestors. And also when we dance, we normally show off.
As ons nie 'n volksspele drag het nie, sou ons net 'n gewone sang en spele groep gewees het. So ons het die klere drag nodig om 'n identiteit te hê, nê, want dit sê vir almal wie is ons.
I get to feel liberated when I perform and sing and write music and share stories and tell people of where I come from and also tell other people's stories that I've met throughout my life.
That's just a snippet there from the new documentary, Liefde, Uthando. And the man behind it is Bouwer Bosch, who joins us via Zoom from Nelspruit. Well-known musician, actor, director, and the list goes on. Bouwer, thanks for joining us this morning. I watched all of that documentary. It's available on YouTube yesterday. And just goosebumps from beginning to end. And I'm somebody who likes to think I'm a South African who really takes an interest in cultures from across the board. But it just shows how much we still do need to learn, especially those who perhaps haven't taken an interest in those who now live across the road or across the railway lines, as it were. What led you to think that it's actually time? We can't just assume that everybody is taking an interest in other cultures. It's time that we actually put this kind of content out there to help our brothers and sisters educate themselves.
Yeah. Good morning, guys. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. So for me, the whole point of the documentary was just to kind of show the country that we've got so much more in common that makes us different. And I know we are a rainbow nation. We are made up of like 10, 12 different cultures, which is beautiful. And we are like a poikikos in that sense, where we all bring a different flavor to the table. But I don't think we know enough of our brothers and sisters next door. And for me, because I'm an artist, I love music and I love dance and arts. And I'm also an Afrikaner, and I'm proud of my heritage. But I know each culture is proud of their heritage because that's who we are. But we are also South Africans. And I think we don't emphasize enough that we have so much things in common. The fact that I'm proud of my heritage and someone else from another culture is also proud of their heritage, we should celebrate that. We should give each other the space to celebrate that, and that's how you learn from each other. That is how your culture actually grows, is by sharing it, by not holding it like this tight together to your body. You need to share it. That is how cultures grow, and I think we've come a long way. But I think just what's happening the last week or 2 weeks in Senegal kind of like shows me that we've got so much more work to do in South Africa, and stuff like this. I just wanted to bring out something positive to show that, hey, there are racial tensions. The world is at an interesting place with regards to conversations around race, but sometimes we're a little bit too obsessed with race. Like I think it's culture that makes us different, not our skin color. No one chose their skin color, but we chose the way we think. We chose the way we or that stuff that's being taught. And when you've learned something, you can also unlearn something. And that's a big part of South African history, and especially being a white Afrikaans guy. Like, there's so much things that I need to unlearn, which is part of the journey of being a South African. And I think everyone can have a little bit of unlearning to do. And if we can just all be a little bit more vulnerable about who we are as South Africans, the mistakes we've made, the mistakes we still make. But I think the documentary kind of shows a vulnerable side to every culture as well. Like we just want to be ourselves and express who we are and show it and be proud of it.
Bouwer, I'd like your perspective on this. Obviously, we've been covering what's been happening with Senegal. I'm sure Marcel's going to ask you about that in a moment. I'd like to use your potjiekos analogy. Obviously, South Africans focus, I think people actually focus on the negative.
I'd call it a biryani pot.
It's a biryani pot.
Same thing, same thing.
We focus on the negative, don't we? But that's not to say that's what everybody focuses on. Do you think this is just a grand generalization, or do you think there's just a few people, here's my potjiekos moment, that are climbing into this potjiekos and they're separating the vleis from the veggies and the rice, and that's making it seem like it is a bigger problem because we're focusing just on the negative? Surely the positive out of this overpowers that, or am I still being slightly ignorant?
Along with the role of social media being
Yes.
problematic, I find at times as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I think worldwide you can see that the loudest noisemakers always gets the attention, but that doesn't mean they're the ones that actually make an impact. I think the majority of South Africa were not in Senegal yesterday. The majority of South Africa did not condemn or condone what's going on in Senegal. I think the majority of South Africans want change, live change. They do have a lifestyle of unity and Ubuntu, if I may use that reference. But I think that's also just where the world is at. We love to climb on negative things. The 9 out of 10 things that always trend is a negative thing. And I think the last positive thing that trended was the Jerusalem challenge. Thank goodness. But that's definitely, I think you're on point there. We are so obsessed with hatred. We're so obsessed with polarity. We're so obsessed with us and them, that narrative. And that's from everyone. You see that from a bunch of white leaders. You see that from a bunch of black leaders. It's easy identity politics. It's an easy thing to fall back on. And I think if we want change in South Africa, if we want different results, we need different approaches. And I don't see different approaches. I see the same thing over and over again. People rock up. They scream at each other. No one listens to each other. I mean, yesterday in Senegal was a golden opportunity for everyone from AfriForum to Julius Malema to actually have a face-to-face. Imagine those leaders could meet each other in the middle, have a braai, do whatever you want. But there was a golden moment for a conversation yesterday. But what was it? It was shouting from all different. And I mean, it's 2020, man. I mean, where are we with regards to communication? And it just feels like we're a bunch of grown-ups shouting, but we have got the communication skills of toddlers, and it's sad to see.
So
I mean,
true.
we can actually, with conversations, we can bridge so many gaps, and that is where I'm passionate about conversations, and the way this documentary comes in, where if I can teach you and tell you a little bit about my history and where I come from. And even though I'm a white Afrikaans dude and apartheid is kind of definitely falls on our watch, but there's more to our history than that. And the same with any other culture group in South Africa, that if I can let you in my heart and my history as Afrikaner and with the British, you can let me in with yours, and I can give you my perspective. So it's all about walking in each other's hearts and experiences, and we don't have that. Our emotional intelligence, in my opinion, we're still like a 16-year-old child when it comes to our emotional maturity as South Africans. And I think it's okay, but I think we need to step it up a notch.
Indeed.
I think we need more leaders.
And perhaps, you talk about the loudest voices being the ones that people pay attention to. Perhaps it's time for everybody else to make their voices heard and not just say, but I don't agree with that person, even though we're the same race. But I'm not going to go and shout on social media. I'm not going to go and walk in the streets to make myself heard. I mean, speaking of which, I mean, one of the pictures I love about you the most is the one where you're wearing the picture of the well-known anti-apartheid activist and famed theologian, Beyers Nudeer, and you've got the T-shirt that says the original Bay. I also know that you kind of have also become a self-styled social activist, and that hasn't sat well with many people who perhaps were fans of your music within the Afrikaner music circuit, and you've taken some heat for that in social media as well. How are you managing that in terms of your own identity as a young Afrikaner who believes in the future of this country?
Yeah, it is definitely challenging at times. I think my biggest struggle is sometimes just the older generation. I mean, I wasn't part of apartheid, but I'm trying to speak about it and say that it was wrong and kind of have an empathy approach to it, because again, like I said, like that's not something that's part of our DNA. Is having conversations with regards to empathy, but it has been challenging. But for me, that's where I'm hopeful. The majority of South Africans, black and white, do live change. They do want a better South Africa, and they live that reconciliation lifestyle. And I think it's just sometimes, I think the leaders, the people that make the most noise, even if they aren't politicians, they polarize, because there's money to be made by polarizing people. There's votes to be gained by making us hate each other. And I think the majority of people don't fall for that. I think we're mature enough, we're adults enough to know that that's nonsense, and there's more people that makes a difference. But for me, it's all about the future. Like I always say, like I want to plant trees, even though I don't sit in their shade one day, because we have a South African heritage as well, not just Afrikaner, Zulu, Xhosa. We have a South African heritage that we're also building, and we need to be held accountable for that, not just our own.
It's all about the accountability, Bouwer. Thank you so much. I think we saw just a snippet of that documentary earlier. It's been a pleasure speaking to you. We've got a little treat for our viewers as well.
So the documentary we were speaking to Bouwer about is called Liefde, Love, Uthando, but what came out before that is actually a single, a new music video that he has also released along with a couple of other collaborators. So we thank Bouwer for his time, but let's let his music speak for a change.
For the places I have been, I have never had to keep going back. I keep going back. And like a drug, I can never get enough. I keep running back. I keep running back. I don't know if I am right. 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 Voel je soms alsof jij hier die vloerplanken valt? Verstoord tot de hoek, verstaanbaar op bang. Je staan op je kop van die wereld en jij
Just a snippet there from Liefde, Love, Uthando. Some beautiful lyrics in that song, Gareth. Oral waar ek loop, sien ek hope vol hoop. Everywhere I go, I see heaps of hope. And the other one saying, ek wil hier by jou bly, I want to stay by you. And that obviously can speak about a relationship of some kind, but here speaking about your relationship with your country, being South Africa. I want to stay here with you.